And we are live for episode number 1 of David's Saturday Night Sit Back, everybody. A couple of thank yous to get this podcast started because it is episode number 1. First of all, I want to thank number 1 guest, Jacob Allen Keithley, for flying out all the way from California to just do this.
Nothing else.
We did not go to a jazz club last night.
I've been held here against my will for a week.
We did not go on a 12-mile bike ride.
Nope.
We did not attempt to jump into the Barton Springs.
Nope.
So thank you for flying out just for the podcast.
Of course.
And then we got Tommy. Tommy's over there on the recliner. You can't see him. He has the most handsome fade in all of Austin, Texas. He's taken already. So while he is gorgeous, don't bother. He's spoken for. I wanted to thank my sister, Melissa. She's one of the most creative people in my life. She runs her own business and she's constantly creating different things and producing content on Instagram, and she's been doing it for years, and she's incredibly tenacious, and her persistence and dedication to her craft inspired me to get more creative myself, so here we are. And then the last thank you is to my friend Marcus, who is the host of the podcast Recruiting Trailblazers. I called Marcus and said, hey, I want to start this podcast. And he's just been an incredible support system for me, taking my phone calls, taking my text messages, always responding very, very quickly, even though he has his own podcast, his own business. And I'm just so grateful to have him in my life. So Marcus, if it wasn't for you, this podcast literally not be happening. So I appreciate you for that. But to get the episode started, today we have with us a measurement technician for the company Home Depot, a volunteer/assistant curator for the Museum of Northern California Art. This young man has a bachelor's of the arts in anthropology from the College of Behavioral Sciences. He is the brother to 2 siblings. He's a son, he's a friend, he's a douchebag CrossFitter, but we love him despite that. Jacob Allen Keithley is here in Austin, Texas on David's Saturday Night Sit Back. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you for that marvelously accurate introduction. That's a lot of specific details, especially that last little tidbit. Yeah, that's great to be here, and thank you so much for having me on the very first episode. Honestly, it's a kind of an honor.
Yeah, man.
And I'm only slightly nervous for that.
I was nervous. I just need to get speaking. It's on already.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to ask you one thing that was sort of cool. I made fun of you for being a CrossFitter.
Oh, all the time, yeah.
But we went to a CrossFit gym this morning, and we had never been to it before, so no one had any idea who you were. And one thing that I don't see in a traditional gym with weights and machines and cables and whatnot is 3 or 4 people introduced themselves to you. They were offering you help. Is CrossFit a little bit more community-based? Do you think that was an Austin thing? If we went to a different CrossFit, a different gym, would that same thing have happened?
So I've only been to 2 others, including this one outside of my typical gym, which shout out to Upper Park CrossFit in Chico, California. Absolutely love it there. So prior to this, I ended up doing the Murph workout. And for those of you who don't know, it's a military honor workout. And basically it is a mile run to start. And you're supposed to do, it is 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 squats. Then a mile closeout, all wearing a assault vest of various weights. And I did that on Thanksgiving with Petaluma CrossFit. Because I had a family friend introduce me and kind of invite me to go do it. So yeah, and honestly, it was the exact same reaction there. Like, as soon as I walk in, I said hi to her, and next thing I know, I'm shaking hands with like 4, 5, 10 different people. And we all suffer together, and I just call it trauma bonding because we're all done. And yeah, and we've even had drop-ins come in from all over to Upper Park if they're visiting family or their kids at college or something like that. And it's always a warm welcome. And I know it's, people call it a cult, dude. And
I've never used that word.
Yeah, I mean, I did drink the Kool-Aid. But no, it's just always a good community. And the thing is, like, some people can be kind of more competitive about it, but also what I've observed so far is that they take their competitiveness and them working on what they need to work on kind of more off to the side. So it allows room for people who are just doing it for more intense fitness or for whatever one. However you want to do it, there's room for you, basically. And, there are some days where, in my personal experience, I will crank that weight. I will go ham on an AMRAP. I got the energy, and some days I just do not feel it. I just do not feel it. I'll do lifting. I'll do builds of like 5 pounds for the amount we're supposed to do, and then just kind of cruise on the main WODs and whatnot. So you can really just go either way with it, and it's always nice to have that sense of community, because for a long time I just worked out by myself. It sucked. I mean, just kind of more standard stuff, but it's nice to actually push myself. And I feel like if I do end up moving this year, like I can easily find anywhere to be welcome, and just kind of easy introduction and stuff like that. I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I just moved to Austin, Texas. I don't know anybody out here. And so for me, building community is really important. So I set a goal for myself that I would meet one new person a day, whether that was dog park, at the gym, in the grocery store. I've actually been doing pretty good about it, on my end. But
Oh yeah.
a couple, you get really weird responses. Like one guy I just asked him about his technique on a workout. We got to chit-chatting for like 4 or 5 minutes, parted our separate ways, finished my workout, and then on the way out, he was still there. So I went over and just thanked him again for the conversation and asked him, like, it was a Friday. So I was like, got any plans for your weekend? And he sort of went, huh? Like, almost like I like asking him on a date, or, it was funny, but I've just noticed in this exercise, I've now forced myself to meet about 60 to 70 new people at this point, and not all of those interactions were necessarily positive. But it was refreshing to see you be able to go into a gym and immediately make 3 or 4 other acquaintances. I won't necessarily call them friends. But it was just nice. Like, it made my morning.
Social media. They're my homies now. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, they already followed you.
No,
they don't
I'm
even
kidding.
know your name.
I know. Well, they do now. No, I'm just cracking a joke. But yeah, no, and that's a big thing for me too. Is seeing you go through this, and you've really stuck hard to that goal. Because dude, it is hard to make friends as an adult. It's hard. Like, it is.
Yeah.
And like, I was looking up, like, and I've been doing, just with the CrossFit stuff, I've been doing only that a year. I feel like only in the last 6 months I've really gotten close to people there. Especially with this open coming around, because we do a kind of more social event as well as the open every Friday. So that's a big community thing, and it's really great. But yeah, that's one thing I definitely kind of thought about strategizing if and when moving. Just of like, how am I going to integrate myself? And really, I don't think there's any other way. Like, you just have to put yourself out there. As terrifying as that can be. So, dude, like, you're doing
I appreciate it.
Yeah, like, no, I'm being real. Like, it's impressive. It really is.
It's not easy. To your point about working, there's not always days that you want to do it, but you go anyways.
Yeah.
There's days where I don't want to introduce myself to people, so I don't. So I
oh, no way, me too.
I haven't been perfect at it, but to help with it, I'm reading a book that's called Platonic, How the Science of Attachment Can Help You Make and Keep Friends. The author is not coming up on this page. Oh, there she is. Marissa G. Franco, PhD. If you want a sample of the book without having to buy a physical or audio copy of it, she was a guest on the Ed Milet show a couple weeks ago. But there's a phrase that I wanted to run past you that is in the first chapter of her book. And she says that relationships, like sexual relationships between partners, is naked bodies, and platonic friendships is naked personalities. I loved it.
Yeah,
because you and me are the best example of just last night. We had a conversation that, would you have necessarily had, or not the one in the evening, but the one before you left for the bike ride?
Okay, yeah.
Like, that conversation you might not have with a significant other. Like, hopefully you would, because of the nature of it. But like my friend Santina and my friend Courtney, I can think of like several people where we have those naked personalities, or just like very genuine, honest conversations of, this is what I'm really happy about, this is what I'm really sad about. Tommy, what's the relationship when it's not platonic? When you're your girlfriend and you, what's that word? Do you know what I'm getting at?
I'd say significant other. That's romantic relationship.
But you said, what's the difference between a relationship between friends versus partners, and then how to make those friendships? But I guess to not overcomplicate it, what do you think of that simple phrase of just sexual relationships as naked bodies, whereas platonic relationships as naked personalities?
I mean, it kind of makes sense because it derives from the whole just be yourself thing. As cliche and cheesy as that is, it works. It absolutely works. Like, I've dropped references to, like, comic books, video games, anything. Hell, my text tone was the Power Rangers communicator for years, and
Jesus Christ.
people would turn their heads and be like, "Yo, dude!" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, come on, it's that where it's just like you just be yourself, just your authentic, vulnerable self. It is just the naked personality, and trust me, it takes a long time to get there. Like, I think I just got there, and to put it in layman's terms, just stopped giving a fuck. I think about like 3 years ago or so. Like, just with, and I'm talking not with like my circle, like just being myself anywhere. And it took a little bit to build to that, but I'm glad where I'm at. I will wear all the nerdy stuff, and I don't care. Just as an example.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it tends to attract people. Like, it really does.
My closest friends I've all made in probably the last 3 to 5 years. And even though I hate to say it, I think it took me till I was somewhere between 27 and 30 before I started to be a genuine person and a transparent person. I'll come back to that in a second. But for those who have stuck with us for 13 minutes so far, we are going to... Yes, it has.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We are going to talk about what it's growing up being a gay man in a small town, role models and their impact on us. Big one that I think this episode is that we're going to talk about is career, navigating that path from college to career. And then we're going to wrap things up with mental health. So if you're wondering if you should stick around or not, that's what's going to be covered.
Why are you wondering if you should stick around? You
everyone
absolutely
should stick
You
around.
absolutely should,
Stick
guys.
around.
Come on.
Everybody.
It's going to be fun.
I was raised as a closeted kid in a Christian school, and then was very heavily involved in the church. Yeah, there he is. There's that fade. There's the fade.
He's getting the pizza.
And then from 18 to when I came out in my mid-20s, I was, I was being inauthentic to myself, but also to all those in my community. And then when I did come out of the closet, a lot of my friends that I developed up to that point were heavily related in the church, and so they disappeared pretty quickly. And then it really was when I was like 28, 29, 30, I would let myself get vulnerable with even simple stuff about not being ashamed of, like, one of my favorite shows to watch is American Idol. Like, that is taking top priority on
I'm
Sunday
not laughing
nights right
at
now.
you. I'm not. It's great. Yeah.
But it's like your power.
Back.
It's like your Power Ranger thing,
Yeah,
of like,
it's the
who
same.
cares if you're 25 and your phone still plays the Power Ranger? I think that if you're genuine and authentic, you're going to form relationships that will allow those you and your friends will naturally gravitate towards each other.
Mm.
But if you're ashamed of the fact that, oh, what will people think of me because I watch American Idol? But if I'm transparent and open about that, I might connect with other people who like American Idol, and also find out that they like going to the gym, and then we might end up find out that we have more commonalities instead of differences.
Yeah. I mean, even like with certain friendships, especially ones that last, like me and my best friend, I was just thinking about this. Like we're very similar, but we're also very different in terms of interests.
Is this Sienna?
Yeah.
I got you, Sienna.
Hi.
He wasn't going to name you, but I'll name drop you.
Okay, thank you.
And
I didn't
miss
know if
you.
I should name drop, but hey, girl. Okay. So like we I don't know. It's like we'll totally poke fun at each other. Like, for whatever reason, we watched all the Twilight movies. She absolutely loved them because she grew up with them. We still joke about them, and it's like the same thing with me growing up with like all the old school like Godzilla movies. They're cheesy. They're both cheesy, campy, and we like to make fun of them. But each of us enjoy it, and we're okay with it, and we just vibe. So it's kind of a give and take. Yeah.
Okay, let's jump into it. Life in a small town. Where were you raised as a kid?
Major brownie points, if any of you know where this is. It is Cotati, California.
How do you spell that?
Cotati, and it was named after the Native American chief of that area.
Say it one more time. I apologize.
Cotati?
So the spelling.
Cotati.
A-T-I.
It's
So for
basically
those-
linked with Rohnert Park, which is about like 20-30 minutes south of Santa Rosa, because I know a lot of people know where Santa Rosa is.
Population of 7,500. Sound right?
Grr. Yeah,
So
last
small.
I checked.
Not tiny, not hundreds. I went to my
No.
buddy's ranch for Thanksgiving last year, and the population of the town his mom lives in was like
2.
yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
And then a gay showed up.
So 3.
The one had a heart attack, and then he left, so it's 0.
Back to 2. Okay. Get back to 1.
So about 7,500 people. And how long did you live there for?
God, I mean, I left in 2015. I was in the dorms, so I don't know if I was like a resident of Chico, but that's when I started living there full time, if you'd say. I was 17. And the majority of my first semester was actually during that I was 17. So that was interesting.
Were you ever out when you grew up there?
No.
No.
Growing up, no. No.
When you think about your childhood, what was one of your favorite memories?
One of the fondest memories, I guess, sources would just be how close knit everything was. We always had our neighbors. Everything to downtown's in walking distance, and it's something we still do, especially to this day. Now that I'm of legal drinking age, and just now I can, as an adult, I can enjoy, like, I guess, just kind of be on my parents' level. So that's a little bit different, but yeah, just like there was like this creek that was right by our house, parks everywhere. I mean, there was just so much to do. We were always outside.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Same here. We grew up in Folsom. When I say we, I'm mainly referencing my sister Melissa and my older brother Mark, because there is a 10-year gap between the next two siblings. So when the three of us were growing up, it was all basketball, laser tag,
Oh yeah.
hide and seek, doorbell ditching. I remember the neighbor James. We had Annie and Will, and then Danny. Before that, on Christmas Day, before we lived in that neighborhood, I actually had to ask my mom, like, what was my childhood like before 7? I don't know about you, but I have like very little memories pre-first grade. Do you?
Honestly, I don't. It's just flashes, I guess, if I really think. I remember preschool. I do remember parts of kindergarten and into first grade. But that's like if I really strain to like think about stuff.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. But
the memories are there, though, because when I asked my mom and we started talking about it, the more we talked,
comes
the
back.
more she would tell me the backyard where you had the big shrub on the left side, the pool was directly, and then the swing was on the right. And then as she started describing it, I'd remember other things, like when I'd walk into the backyard and the dog would steal my Pop-Tart. And my mom already had another one on hand. And what I'm really wondering is why instead of reheating a second Pop-Tart, why didn't we just train the damn dog to not steal from the kid?
Pop-Tart stealing.
Sorry,
dog.
Mom. I'm not telling you how to parent. I'm just saying.
Sorry, Ma.
But you had the second Pop-Tart on hand, so I can't give you too much grief.
She was on top of it.
She was on top of it. So you moved out mainly to go to college?
Yeah, and I mean, I know 17 was young and everything, and I was super young because I started kindergarten when I was 4, and even by the time I hit 5, I was like reading full Dr. Seuss books and just like getting that. So I was ready, and I felt ready, and it just all worked out. Like, I mean, I would tell people, they'd be like, "Oh shit," but other than that, it like socially, it didn't really affect anything. It only really did once all my friends started getting to 21, and I'd just be in the bar window outside, like, please let me in.
Yeah.
But other than that, that only lasted a little, like, a year and a half, so it was fine.
You never did the fake ID thing?
Oh, God, no. Well, because, like, it was only a year and a half, and also, if I get busted with that.
Yeah.
So I just never did. And besides, we had stuff I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, it's Chico's college town. We have our ways.
You have your ways.
We have our ways. So, yeah, that was never... That's only when my age kind of just became a little bit of a disparity, but it really wasn't. Yeah. So, yeah. I joke about it, but it really wasn't.
Remind me, were you raised religious at all?
So, that's... I know, like, I was baptized, and, after coming out, I was like, didn't work. But, so... Yeah, they tried. But my mom was raised Baptist. I know my dad went to church back in the day, but both of them just kind of they're instilled in me, like, believe, if you figure it out, as long as you're not hurting anyone, you're not going too extreme, it's not a cult, you're fine. Like, as a teenager, I got really into Buddhism for a minute, especially when I was doing martial arts, and both my parents were digging that, like, read books by the Dalai Lama and stuff like that, and just get more perspective. There are people around me, and still are, that are religious, and I still find it very fascinating, but I also admit that I look at it more like historical anthropological sense. So it's a little bit different, but
there's that degree coming out.
see, I can use it. You can use this. Just not well. Kidding. But yeah, so it's a little bit more like I'm trying to understand where people are coming from through these practices as like a culture and the history of that. Like lately I've fallen down this rabbit hole of study because both me and my dad, after we 2021 summer, we went to Laredo in Baja, which is a beautiful tiny like fishing village. It's a town, but one of, if not the, if I remember correctly, first ever monasteries, Catholic monasteries, is there. That's where they start in the west coast of the New World, and it's all stone, super rustic, beautiful. We went and saw it. But since then, and especially after getting his passport, like my dad's been wanting to go and do Camino de Santiago through France, Spain, and Portugal. And it's a Catholic pilgrimage. And we're not Catholic. And there's no like rules saying you have to be Catholic to do it. But, I mean, you are encouraged to kind of go into it with a spiritual mindset, which I do agree with. But I've been diving into this history, and it's just so fascinating. All the stuff that came out of all, like, the whole way.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that have done this, they have really deep ties to the Knights Templar at the height of their power. And it is just absolutely fascinating. I completely fell down this rabbit hole of research just for like a week between articles, guidebooks, everything. So, that's kind of, I look at religion and everything more with that kind of, especially as an adult now. Yeah, but I definitely do not shame anyone. It just, and there's some wonky beliefs, everything like that. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's just kind of everywhere.
Is it wonky that I believe the earth is flat?
Yes.
Tommy says no.
Tommy, don't encourage him.
Yeah, no, and actually, I asked it because I'll get to the point here in a few questions.
And also, sorry, that was a ramble. I kind of rambled.
It was a good ramble.
Okay.
Touch on a couple points of the ramble that after I stopped going to church for a couple years, I stumbled onto this podcast called The Bible Project, and what they did was they look at it from, I'm going to butcher this, so if they ever hear this, I apologize. But they know their Greek and their Hebrew, since they know so much about the culture of Greece and all the other places that the man known as Jesus was. I went on the stint where I listened to like 30 episodes and studied this book that has sold millions of copies.
It's been transcribed.
And if you asked anyone in the U.S., just if I said Jesus, what would you say? They would probably say, white robe, brown hair. I almost got more insights into what Christianity is from those 30 podcasts than I did 25 years going to church.
Yeah.
More than once a week.
Yeah.
Swirling back to something you mentioned, you and your dad went on a trip. I think you said you have another one coming up. How would you describe your relationship with Daddy Keithley? Dale, I'm sorry.
Papa Dale was good. No, we're good. And I think it's become stronger as an adult. I think, especially that, like I kind of mentioned, just being more on my parents' level, it is a different social dynamic. Like, it really is. And just kind of doing that more. And we're able to talk about stuff and everything. Like, one thing, like, really tries to, like, anytime I ask anything, like, he really tries to give me a solid answer. And sometimes it struggles because complex question, like life questions, And I've told him, like, dude, like, I don't know is a perfect answer. That's still an answer, But like, I love and I deeply appreciate the fact that always he tries.
Yeah.
He tries to just to give me the solid answer every single.
Real quick before I dive into this, are you hungry?
Maybe.
Can you eat and talk at the same time?
We'll find out.
Can we ask you a huge favor? Do you mind serving up some pizza and wings?
Just throw the slice. I'll catch it.
Yeah. Toss it over your computer, not mine. I appreciate you, Tommy. Part of the reason I ask is because me and my dad have not talked since probably 8 or 9 years. Won't get into details why, but One thing that I really admire about you is, how old were you when you came out? Ish.
We'll get into this kind of later, but
Right.
halfway when I was 18, fully when I was.
Perfect. I am probably drawing a large conclusion here, but I do wonder, me and my dad, when we were in communication with each other, were always, I don't want to say hostile. He never like beat me, but here's an example of me and my dad's relationship. I remember the one time that I went to him because some kids on campus were making fun of me, and then they also got together and they went to the administration and they told a lie about me to get me into trouble, and because it was 6 people against 1, the administration automatically assumed that was correct. I got in trouble with the administration, and when I went to my dad to try to get help from him, I told him the situation. He said that God is probably punishing you because of a sin that you haven't repented for, and so I can't do anything to help you with these kids making fun of you. You need to solve that problem yourself. So when me and my dad were talking, that was our relationship. And then finally, fast forward a couple of years, and there's another event, which I won't get into with this podcast, but I finally told him, enough is enough. Please stop contacting me. And so then he waited about a month. He called me. I picked up the phone. I said, I was being very serious. You called me on my bluff, and I don't want to talk to you anymore. Talked for about years, and then we both showed up to my sister's graduation party, and it actually worked out really well. I'm glad that about 8 years passed.
Yeah.
My sister called me. She gave me a heads up, and I was grateful
Okay.
enough to be able to say, it's your party, so just have them. She even told me I have stayed in communication, and even he's grown up. He's not the same man that you knew when you stopped talking. The point I'm trying to get to is, I admire the fact that you did something years before I did, and I wonder if you think there's any correlation between the fact that you have a strong relationship with your dad, whereas I never had like that male model to look up to. You know, my male models of like the senior football players in my high school were my worst enemies, and then my other potential male role model would be my dad, who I despised. And I wondered if, because I didn't have like a male influence that had my back, did that potentially keep me from having the same confidence at 25 that I think that I admire in you?
I just want to start. I am no psychologist. But I have, in talking with a lot of members of our community, I have talked about similar kind of thing, and I do think there is a lot of correlation, like development. And I mean, granted, and I mean, I'll explain the whole like half and full. So, in my coming out, and I've talked to my dad about this, and he just straight up told me like he doesn't quite understand it, but that doesn't deter anything. Like, I have brought only once, and it went great, but I did bring a boyfriend to meet them, and it was great. Like, honestly, it was in and of itself was awesome. And everyone was good about it. Like, it was just like no difference, you know? Like, it's the same with my sister brings home a boyfriend. Same deal. So that was really, but that only happened, this October of 2022. So that's still pretty recent, you know.
Not to interrupt, but you just touched on something I think is so key, and I wonder if you would agree with this or not. If there's anyone that's listening to this, and they know someone, a friend, a family member, a colleague, and they're like, oh, they came out, how should I react to that? The most refreshing has been the friends and family members where things kept going as if nothing changed.
Yeah.
Whereas it was as normal as I said, like, I had pizza for lunch yesterday.
Basically, and the best responses, and this might come off as real crass, but literally the best responses I've had from friends where I'm like, I just have to tell you something. Like, hey, like, you know, just fuck it. I'm gay. And they just look me dead in the eyes and go, Jake, no shit. Like, I've had that happen multiple times, and it's just kind of like, oh, and just go back to what, like, it does not matter. And, like, people have asked me questions, and, like, that's fine. Like, I'm okay to answer.
Yeah.
At least now. But, yeah, that hands down, in retrospect, is the best answer.
One of my friends, David Nelson, I've lost contact with him for a few years, but I remember when he found out, he asked me if we could go out for dinner.
Crude joke, but was he shooting a shot? Sorry.
I wish. It's a very
That's
attractive
okay.
man,
That's
but
okay.
unfortunately he likes women, but that's fine.
Oh.
But he took me out. He just sent me a random text and he's like, "Hey, can we go out for dinner?" And I said, "Sure." And so we meet at the restaurant, order our food, and then every single guy that came through the door, he's like, "Hey, do you find him attractive?" And he was being
God,
No,
you had that too?
but for me, it was like one of the best meals of my life.
But it is hilarious
because he was so cute, because he wanted to be my wingman, but he had no idea what I was interested in. So in his mind, his first way of being a good friend is finding out what kind of man does David find attractive.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh my God, because that just happened to me, and I love it was my buddy Jared back in gosh, what was our junior year, and yeah, he found out about it. 'Cause this was kind of like a developing like friend group merger type deal. There's just a lot of us, and we were at this bar in Chico called Riley's, which is quite the opposite of a gay bar. And every other dude is like, yo, yeah. For those of you who can't see, I'm like twitching my neck and going, probably just heard it crack too. And I was just like, I'm like, dude, like, stop. Like, it's helpful. And like, I get it. You're trying to be cool and be a wingman, but I'm like, clearly now, like, here and now is not the time to do this.
It's the perfect time.
I'm like, these frat boys aren't cool in the public. Come on.
You never know.
They're the no profile pics on Grindr.
You never know. Okay. So to segue, if you...
Oh my God. You are awesome.
Thank you, Tommy. If you know someone...
If everyone has a crew like this, please support.
Yes. Oh, I was thinking, I don't know what a Patreon or a Substack is, but I heard that's ways that this can make money.
Oh, dude.
Someone else said it on a podcast.
You started a podcast and you don't know what Patreon is?
I don't.
Okay. Basically, it's like a tier subscription. So, like, you could do, to keep this thing going, it's like you could do like $1 a month, $5, $10, like whatever you want to put on. And if people like your content and want to keep it going, like it's solid. Like I definitely I've subscribed to a couple like art Patreons because I love what these people are producing, and it's like, I know it ain't cheap to do this, and it doesn't make a whole lot of money. So like they're like web comics and things like that. Like I've subscribed to shout out to Laura Olympus. Love that one. Is it Rachel Blythe, the artist? Mm-hmm. Yeah, love it, subscribed. So things like that. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna set one up. I'm gonna talk for a minite if you want to take a bite.
I'm gonna,
because I'm narcissistic and egotistical,
and I'm hungry, so please do.
Perfect. I majored in accounting. When I was a kid, I had I think it was a Dr. Seuss book, and there was a series of pages where a guy was in a lab coat and he was mixing all these different chemicals and they were blowing up and there was fire. And so as a kid, I thought I wanted to be a chemist because I'm a pyromaniac. So I got to my sophomore year of high school. I took a chemistry course and it was the worst experience of my life. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to be a chemist. Graduated from high school, and because all my friends were going to college, my personality, for no logical reason at all, is if everyone is doing something, do the opposite. So I didn't go to college. So fast forward, and I'm working as a personal trainer at a local health club. And I went to a conference for personal trainers, and the keynote speaker was a lady who was training pro hockey players, football players, musicians, actors, actresses, like very public figures. And for people who have not worked as a personal trainer, you're almost like a shrink to these people. Once you get 10, 20, 30 sessions in, you're talking that entire hour. You see them twice a week. They're venting to you about everything. And I thought it would be a fascinating career to get to see behind the scenes where their guard is down. And I'm not like a paparazzi trying to get their name, but I'm someone that they know and they trust.
Who's like familiar and comfortable.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I elbowed my way up to the front of the stage because I really wanted to ask her, here's where I'm working, here's what I'm doing. What would you tell me is like the next 1 or 2 things I need to do to get your job? And she said, you need to go back to school and get a degree in kinesiology. And I thought, fuck. So I went back to school. I signed up for all my kinesiology courses. And you know what they included? Chemistry and biology. And it blew my mind. I cried my way through 3 weeks of a chemistry course and just realized that this is not going to happen. But now I'm already enrolled in school, and I'm thinking maybe I should stick around and get a degree in something. ended up taking, of all things, a financial accounting class. And we were studying debits and credits and retained earnings and LIFO, FIFO, weighted average LIFO. And I got
Ooh,
an
tell me more.
educational boner for this content. It was wonderful.
Like you felt it against the desk?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time in school ever that I actually enjoyed what I was doing, but I also understood it. Even though I didn't know it, I was looking at these different accounting concepts and it just made sense to me. And so by default, I got my degree in accounting. What about you? Anthropology. Why would you do that to yourself?
Well, it was the first thing on the list when I looked at... No, I'm kidding. So, I mean, I got a question too. So even through like high school and everything was school just not quite for you?
Hated math. I was really...
Oh, dude, me too.
Not in a bragging way. I was really good at English. I feel like everyone like just knocks out one of those main courses out of the park. There's someone who's really good at science, math. Mine was English. I did enjoy writing. Essays never bothered me in college. Not to keep going back to this, but I almost wonder too if for me, going to the campus was my most feared place to go. So it's almost like maybe I couldn't focus and like even figure out like, oh, what classes do I enjoy because I was more thinking about something else.
Yeah.
Oh, I will say though, I was homeschooled, so I saw everything. I saw private, public, and homeschool. And the homeschooling years were really fun, and I enjoyed those. And it wasn't because we were lazy. My parents did a good job at enrolling us in sports. We were active in the church. It wasn't just me and my brother and my mom holed up in the house 24/7.
It was more community.
It was more community.
Okay,
we had the co-op we went to where we met with other homeschooling families. And I actually do have really, really fond memories of those 5 years. So,
nice.
To answer your question, I don't know.
Yeah, I do not bash homeschooling. Like their studies have shown, it's done right, curriculum, everything. Like it does work. It can work. So that's great. That still works. I was just curious, just kind of what your experiences was, because I had a very similar experience where it was like history. I was phenomenal in. English, I was great. English was probably in terms of like work, my strongest. Best class I ever took in high school, and I seriously encourage anyone to do this, was AP Rhetoric. And it was basically like speech and debate class. And it taught me, like, I had to do the full big load of homework to get into it. And I, of course, being the teenager I was, decided last minute to do it. So I shit you not, an entire Saturday, a full 12 hours. I took like a 30-minute break to go down to a local market, get some lunch. And I did the whole thing, got in, and then it taught me, rhetorical devices, persuasive devices, how to literally generate a speech by just 5 bullet points. Because we get up there, and it was like trial and error, basically. She ran us through, and also, shout out to Miss Williamson. Unfortunately, she did pass away a few years ago. Cancer. Thoughts go out to you. You are an amazing, phenomenal teacher. She drilled us, basically, on all this stuff, and it was the most influential of going into college, because you can just get a prompt for an essay and be done. It's like, here's the intro, first paragraph, second paragraph, third, whatever, conclusion, done. And then just write. Like, it really, really impacted me to be able to do this stuff. And then what really influenced me, especially going from high school into college, and you're going to laugh at this when you watch this show, but I wanted to be like Barry Allen. Like, I grew up reading Flash comics, loved it. Like, I wanted to be forensics. And how you did forensics was through it's a subfield of anthropology. And even doing things like in chemistry, I did okay in, so I took that, so I already had a basis. And like, we would go into the Santa Rosa Junior College and work on cadavers as a senior, which was awesome.
That's cool.
It is so cool. It is so cool to go and do that. And so that really influenced me. So, of course, I'm bebopping my way to Chico State. And I'm like, I'm going to do forensics. And I'm cracking all the jokes because it was a very similar experience to yours, where I was like, I'm going to do this. I did all the intro classes. Absolutely loved it. Loved figuring out all this stuff. And then what ended up happening was my sophomore year, I took an organic chemistry class. and completely failed it. And the only unit I ever got was the nuclear physics one. Riddle me that. But, so that happened. And the most ironic part was that was an 8 a.m. organic chemistry class. Right afterwards, I had a religious studies class. And I kid you not, called Death, Dying, in the Afterlife. And if that wasn't a fucking sign, I don't know what was. So we did that. I mean, and add on to it, like, I was really trying to figure myself out too. And this was in the time that I was coming out and figuring out who I was. So not great. The next semester, I'm like, well, God, like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, what do I do? Ended up taking an introductory archaeology course. Aced it. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Because it is just forensics, but turn back the clock a few thousand years, you know, a little further. And I mean, that's a very big oversimplification. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it, but it just hooked me. And I mean, there were even times I remember as a kid, because I was like, my dad got me into like Indiana Jones and all that stuff. And I loved the history and the lore. I grew up on Greek mythology. Like, I have tattoos now. I'm building a Greek sleeve.
I think you just had a thing for Indiana Jones.
Busted.
Who doesn't have a thing for Indiana Jones?
Right?
Even Tommy.
Yeah.
A little
Tommy's
bit.
dying.
Yeah. He didn't even hesitate.
Yeah. I mean, sure, maybe that influenced a few other things other than my academic career. But yeah, and that was just, I was like, as a kid, I was just like, I want to be an archaeologist. Like, I want to go dive into this stuff. And I think that's also why, like, I did really well in, like, history and, like, literature and things like that.
Yeah.
And so, but from there, I started doing that. I started going to cultural resource management, but eventually I found museum studies. And I've taken everything from, like, exhibition, planning, installation, administration, education. I've done a year in the teaching credential program, so I have better understanding of how to build, like, education curriculum, even applying that to a museum setting. Collections management, I've worked on biological remains, physical remains, like, you name it. And it ended with me doing an internship up in Reading at Turtle Bay. Absolutely loved it. Very historical based. Yeah. Absolutely loved it, and that's what I graduated with. So I have my BA, like you said, my BA in anthropology, and I have a certificate, museum.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
Thank you.
You are post-college, you have your degree, you're done, and you've been, real quick, I want to address for anyone that happens to watch this on video, I don't eat my pizza like a Viking normally.
Don't lie to them.
No. Well, the crust came off, or it, like, fell off, so really it's mostly just, like, cheese and vegetables. But as I was eating it, I was like, I look like such an idiot right now. And I am an idiot, but I know how to eat pizza. That's one of the few things. I'm a professional. I eat a lot of pizza, and I don't normally do I was, like, dragging it off the plate. And then after that, the water falling down the beard and the shirt, I don't know what happened there. That was just
I think it's called gravity.
Oh, you didn't take it off the cardboard.
It said to keep it on the cardboard.
Well, we're not buying this brand again.
Mm-mm.
We're not going to shout out. Who the fuck is...
I think it's Austin. Not...
It's made from the deep heart of Texas. You're at a place post-college, sort of pre-career.
Yep.
You have your internship.
Yep.
I know you, my sister, and probably a lot of other people are in a place where you're like, okay, I got this degree, and I either don't know what I'm doing with it, I can't get a job in the field I want, that coupled with other things. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you feel that's impacted your mental health and just what your journey has been like the last couple of months?
So I finished my degree. I walked May of 2019, but then I still had one more semester. So technically I finished everything like December 10th of 2019. And then we all know what happened a month later.
What happened?
Oh, this little thing.
The pandy wandy?
The pandy wandy.
The pandy wandy.
And we're not talking about a bear. Yeah.
Well, that's because koala bears are cute.
I was thinking panda bear because you did pandy wandy.
What did I say?
Hey.
No, did I say koala? I meant to say panda. Yeah, I'm all over the place.
Get your bears together, man.
I'm not an animalologist.
What?
Everyone just turned this off.
We lost all 3 listeners in one fell swoop. Thank you.
Tommy, why are you putting your laptop in your backpack?
No, Tommy, don't leave.
Oh, mental health. Yes,
Pandemic.
sorry.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you graduated in
Pandemic
December.
hits.
Pandemic hits.
And then, honestly, like my faith in the public sector, it just got shook. Shaken? Shook? I don't know. But
Shaken, not stirred.
you foam your coffee.
Yes, I proudly foam my coffee. Thank you, Mom, for the foamer. It gets used every
damn
morning.
morning.
The last person that saw it said upgraded his coffee game.
I drink it black because I'm a psycho. So my faith, because everything just, it was everything in a matter of weeks. Gone. Completely shut down. And the problem is, like, these are non-profit. Most of these, if you're going to be a museum, you have to file for a 501c3. Non-profit. So people were kind of losing their minds. And I don't know what the hell I was going to do. And now I really think through the pandemic, I've looked at every single opportunity or anything. Well, me and my best friend, hey Sienna, are technically registered insurance agents. That didn't go anywhere. We did it. I did a whole year in the teaching credential because I thought I was going to do that. I was like, nope, because seeing that, it brought me right back to applying this to all the museums, and I just kind of came full circle. I tried everything. And it was stressful. And that was a very stressful aspect for a long, long time. And on top of that, in my personal life, especially 2020, yeah, I dealt with a very abusive situation in which I was in a relationship, then I was still living with them, with someone who was consistently gaslighting, lying to me, and manipulating all of us in my life. I've just come off probably this last year with that. That did a number, and that just threw me. It's through 2021 to now. It's like I've still looked at other options. I've looked at doing more field archaeology for either environmental or for construction firms, because they're always looking for people. I've just looked at everything, and it's hard. And I know I'm not the only one going.
Yeah.
Because I think this really threw everyone for a loop.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly believe, I think 20, 30, 40 years from now, we're going to look at this as a returning point.
Mm-hmm.
I think just for all of us again. But yeah, for me personally, it was just a lot. It was a lot to deal with, kind of every little aspect of my life.
Yeah.
So, I'm just grateful for my family and for my friends that stuck through everything. And that doesn't.
Thank you.
So yeah, that was just kind of where I'm at. And yeah, if anyone else is struggling with the same thing of figuring themselves out, we're all in this together. You're not the only ones, because I know it can feel very, very isolating. And not just with dealing with the abusive situation, but just finding yourself in general. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of put out by your 20s, you should have this all figured out by now, but I don't think anyone really does. So, yeah, sorry. That was a bit of a ramble.
That was perfect. And I have a few things to say about that. One guest that I hope to have on the show is a local musician named Tom Barvik. And one thing that's really cool about him is...
Sound familiar?
Never met
him.
He's not in the room.
We're not looking at him.
But one thing that was really cool about meeting Tom for the first time was that, he's only 23, and he seems like he's very comfortable in his own skin, and that's something that I really admire in him, because I'm 35, and I'm like, what does that mean to be comfortable in your own skin? So I'm definitely excited to talk to him about that and get to know him more. A funny for you, because you mentioned gaslighting. I was accidentally gaslighting my sister once.
What do you mean accidentally?
No, listen. So she said she called me. Listen, she called me out on it, and she said, "Are you gaslighting me right now?" And I've heard the phrase, but I had no idea what it meant. I was like, "What does that mean?" She's like, "You have a phone in your pocket. Google it." So I Googled it, and it means to manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own. And I was definitely gaslighting.
May I ask what exactly you were saying? Because now I'm curious.
I think it was something like she misplaced something, or we were trying to, and she was like, "Did I bring this thing into the kitchen?" And I was like, "I don't know. Did you bring it into the kitchen?" And I knew the answer that she didn't, or she did. You know what? She'll be on the show one day. She'll hear this. We'll talk about it. We were getting into a pretty deep conversation about career, relationships. And a question that I asked you is, do you do a good job at showing yourself some kindness here and there? And you said that's something that you could improve on. And I think that's something we could all improve on. So to end this with a little bit of fun, you and me are going to take a test. You're going to take it in real life right here and now with me. If anyone else wants to take it with us so that you can answer the questions for yourself and think about the answers, you can find it at https. You know what to do.
Just look it up.
It's self-compassion.org/self-compassion.test. It's the one by Dr. Kristen Neff. And so it's 26 questions, and you're going to rate each question on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is almost never. 2 is occasionally. 3 is 50-50. 4 is fairly often. 5 is almost always. So I'll give you number 1, and then I'll give you the options again, and you'll be set.
But before we start,
put it right up to the mic.
A little bit of
Put it right up to the mic when you crack it open.
ASMR for all y'all out there.
If that actually picked it up, I'm going to be so excited.
Also, like, full disclosure, I totally got that from the lovely Paige Wesley from Romancing the Pod and the Horror Virgin and Cold Podcast. You should all go check that out as well and show him some love.
Is that who you listened to yesterday?
Yes, it was. It was Romancing the Pod.
I know her.
You know Paige?
I mean, not personally.
Okay, I was like, personally.
She's not in my Rolodex.
And I like how I say Paige, like I know her too. Like,
her friend.
obviously, I follow her on Instagram.
No, just you were listening to her yesterday, right? That's when you were cooking?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that that's who she was. But anywho, so question number 1. Oh, it starts off rough.
A little bit more for you.
As Tommy laughs in the background. Okay, I can't ask.
That was good. Okay, number 1. I'm disapproving and judgmental about my own flaws and inadequacies. You're almost never disapproving and judgmental about your flaws. Occasionally disapproving, 50-50, fairly often, or you're always disapproving and judgmental about your own flaws and inadequacies.
I'm going to stay in the middle.
Okay.
Because if it's okay if I like just explain every answer or like...
Maybe not all 26.
Oh, there's 20. I thought this was like 10.
No, there's 26.
Or was I not paying attention? Okay. Quick explanation.
Yeah.
It's just because how I go, it's a roller coaster. It's just how my brain is. Sometimes I can't control it. So really it just depends. If I'm good, not happening. Like, that's fine. Like the open last week. Didn't get to where I wanted to. I was totally fine with it because I was just happy to be there. Sometimes it's quite the opposite. So it fluctuates, but it's getting a little better.
I would say for my... I am not one that should be giving advice, but with most like...
What are you talking about? You gave a whole talk on mental health.
Well... Okay, I'll just say what I was going to say. I won't degrade myself.
I
do a lot of self-deprecating talk because I think it's funny. I don't really think I'm stupid. It depends. When I fell down the staircase last night,
that was funny.
That felt
shit,
stupid,
by the way.
Yeah.
But also I've done stupid shit too. Spilling the wine last night, like, we mess up.
I would say for the purposes of this, because of time and also because it is 26 question, just be honest and just go with your gut. Whatever your initial,
yeah.
I do that. Or like, actually, 5 on that one. I have that aspect of this under control.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm just, because honestly, the middle was the best one I could have. because
Sure.
it really just.
You don't want to commit. That's fine. Number 2, when I'm feeling down, I tend to obsess and fixate on everything that's wrong.
Oh yeah, five.
Me too. I think I put 4 or 5 on that one. When things are going badly for me, I see the difficulties as part of life that everyone goes through.
Sorry, read that again.
When things are going badly for me, I see the difficulties as part of life that everyone goes through. To give you some context,
I'd say 5 too.
Okay. It's funny, I'm the opposite. I put 1. I definitely know about myself that I thought I was super unique and I'm the only kid who ever got made fun of and whatnot. So it's like, and again, it depends on at what point of life you're asked that. You know, if you had asked me this when I was like 20, I probably would have said, what did I say my answer was? 5? All I'm saying is, I hope I've grown up.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Well, I mean, even with that in particular, it's like, you know, that's how I ground myself right there. It's
How?
just like, by literally just telling myself, you're going through it just like everyone else.
Gotcha.
That is my grounding technique where I'm just like, dude, quite the opposite. You ain't special.
Mm-hmm.
My name is statistically one of the whitest names. Like, come on. But but my jokes aside, my point is, it's just like, you know, that is how I get myself to come down from those intense negative feelings. So.
Number 4. When I think about my inadequacies, it tends to make me feel more separate and cut off from the rest of the world.
Let's say 4.
I try to be loving towards myself when I'm feeling emotional pain.
Also 4.
When I fail at something important to me, I become consumed by feelings of inadequacy.
5. 6.
Tom, when you fail at something important to you, you become consumed by feelings of inadequacy. Always, never, or somewhere in between. Somewhere in between. Fair enough. Lucky. 7. When I'm down and out, I remind myself that there are lots of other people in the world feeling like I am.
Yeah, 5.
5.
Same as 3. Question.
Gotcha. When times are really difficult, I tend to be tough on myself.
Yeah, 4.
When something upsets me, I try to keep my emotions in balance. I'll put 1. I'm kidding. 2. 3?
That you try to keep your emotions in balance?
When something upsets me, I try to keep my emotions in balance.
Yes. 5.
Okay. Misread you. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I just love.
It was the way you.
I am
the way you
anticipating these questions.
With the way you laughed, I thought it was because you never do that. So that's why I also chuckled and made that assumption. So I apologize. I read you wrong.
Yeah. But it's like, I've tried. Do I succeed? Debatable.
Sure.
But
sure.
I try.
Yep, we try. All right, number 10. When I feel inadequate in some way, I try to remind myself that feelings of inadequacy are shared by most people.
4. Question. Yes.
I'm intolerant and impatient towards those aspects of my personality I don't like.
I say 2.
2, okay. When I'm going through a very hard time, I give myself the caring and tenderness I need.
2.
Let's see. When I'm feeling down, I tend to feel like most other people are probably happier than I am.
4.
When something painful happens, I try to take a balanced view of the situation.
Like in the moment when it happens?
Yeah.
No, 1.
I try to see my failings as part of the human condition.
Oh, 5.
When I see aspects of myself that I don't like, I get down on myself.
2.
Doing good. Number 17. When I fail at something important to me, I try to keep things in perspective.
Oh, 5.
When I'm really struggling, I tend to feel like other people must be having an easier time of it.
5.
I'm kind to myself when I'm experiencing suffering.
4.
When something upsets me, I get carried away with my feelings. I can be a bit cold-hearted towards myself when I'm experiencing suffering.
4.
4.
Thomas,
Are you a 4 as well? That one, Tommy? It's I can be a bit, or so 5 is always, 1 is never, and then the question was, I can be a bit cold-hearted towards myself when I'm experiencing suffering.
Yeah.
Well, if either of you ever need a hug or something, I can come on over. 22. When I'm feeling down, I try to approach my feelings with curiosity and openness.
3.
I'm tolerant of my flaws and inadequacies.
Let's hit 4.
When something painful happens, I tend to blow the incident out of proportion.
4.
When I fail at something that's important to me, I tend to feel alone in my failure.
2.
2. And last but not least, I try to be understanding and patient towards those aspects of my personality I don't like.
Oh, 5.
I think we sort of got that one already. A very similar one. Okay,
Yeah.
calculating. So,
God. Am I in Gryffindor?
What?
I'm making a Pottermore joke. See, he's laughing. He gets it.
You know how I said something to you yesterday and you had no idea what I was talking about, and you just said, what?
Yeah, ditto.
That's what just happened. Now I had that moment.
So after this,
Sorry,
again,
Harry Potter. I do have a Harry Potter joke.
let's hear it.
How did Harry Potter get to the bottom of the hill?
How would he do it?
Running. JK, rolling.
We're done. Good
We're
night.
So number 1, everything.
Oh my.
All right. Well, no, we need to find your
Those
score.
Harry Potter fans, Pottermore. That was for you.
So the average person lands about 3. If you get a score from 1 to 2.5, that means you're low in your self-compassion. 2.5 to 3.5 means you're moderate, and 3.5 to 5 means you're very self-compassionate. So your overall score was 3.09. But here's what's interesting.
Scraping by as normal.
Here's what's interesting, though. Let
boy.
me look this up quick. One of the categories is common humanity, which basically means the understanding that unpleasant feelings are part of the human experience and that suffering is universal. This is where you and me are opposites. Your common humanity is at 4.75, which means you understand that concept.
Yeah.
You weren't like me, where I was like, oh, I'm the only victim on planet Earth. So that's pretty cool. It also says that you're at a 3.5 for mindfulness, which is slightly above average. I don't know if this is exactly if it's indicating self-awareness, but I've talked with you enough times. I think you are very self-aware, and maybe the way this test was run, your score probably could have been a bit higher there.
I tried my best.
Oh, well, here's another interesting one, though. It also scores you on over-identification, which you scored a 4.75.
What is over-identification? What does that mean? And like for the self-aware thing, like I've made jokes, especially like getting back to therapy. I'm like, if they tell me I'm self-aware again,
Oh, this is actually
Flip.
that's a great question, and this is a great way to end this episode. Identification is to identify something excessively and often incorrectly. And I think that in my talkings with you, it's so important that we talk to people about things that are bothering us. My friend Tim Hester once told me that therapy, or whatever the thing is, talking things out with people is really important because we can only see in front of us. Whereas I can see above you, to your left, to your right, you're below. I know what's coming behind you. So anybody can give you different perspectives on a situation that maybe you won't be able to see.
yeah,
And I think a lot of times, and this isn't an insult, this is just confirming that this test is somewhat accurate, is that you do over-identify, because you can tell me David X, and I can tell you that I actually do really admire you, and I do think that you're very thoughtful and intelligent, and that you are worthwhile, and a lot of people like having you around, where you're thinking these, and you're tearing up, and now I'm tearing up, you fucker. But it brings to light why it's so important.
being an empath sucks, man.
An empath.
Because it's like I could feel it. Like even before that, I could feel it.
Oh.
God.
Well, I love you, so.
Love me too.
So the I will just bring this home and try to get us to both stop tearing up, to say that the over-identification part was spot on. And I'll just say it again, for anyone that happens to listen to this episode that's going through rough patch, start the conversation. Talk with someone about it. Come on the podcast. Ooh.
We will gladly accept you with open arms.
Free therapy. Free 1 hour on David's Saturday Night Sit Back. This one is a show where we all cry every Saturday.
Oh, absolutely.
Get the tissue boxes out. People.
Oh, my God. We even made jokes during the open because we were joking about, because it's like $155 a month and it ain't cheap. And then I was just like, well, you know what? I can afford this or I can afford therapy, and here I am. And in the gym, I can crack a joke and everyone laughs. But in therapy, I crack a joke and they look at me concerned and start scribbling furiously. So it's two very different reactions. But, yeah, and I kind of want to add to that a little bit too, just to give a little bit of a personal anecdote that in hopes this will help anyone else that's going through this. One of the biggest personal things for me is that I overthink everything, and when I'm really down and really going through it, I think there's a bit of trauma involved, but I tend to just mask it. I will deal with it when I'm alone. I will not talk about it because most of the time I feel like I'm burdening people around. I feel like I'm just this train wreck that people have to deal with. It is really, really hard for me to just open, but have so far, with exception, unfortunately. People have come through.
It may have even been. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just.
No. I know.
Yeah. It may have been Kristen Neff, the doctor of the self-compassion test, but on Armchair Expert, shout out to Dax and Monica, they did have an interview that I listened to like 2 or 3 years ago, and it's crazy how much scientific research there is about how much relief can come from just talking about something.
Yeah.
And so that's why it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't have to be a psychologist. So if you're someone like us who maybe we don't have the funds to go spend therapy. I literally can't afford it unless I put it on my credit card and I'm not paying interest for therapy. Then just talk to someone. Find whether it's your friend at the gym, a family member, a friend, someone who will keep your trust, who won't take that information and use it against you. Just someone you can trust.
Yeah.
And even if they can't offer you any advice, just that being able to vent, that could be that first step towards, I don't want to say recovery, but since that's the word coming to mind, recovery, relief, and feeling the burden's been lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah, because just locking everything in, and just for the sake of acting okay. It's basically what it is. It's just so damaging. It feels like you're just corroding yourself.
Yeah.
Shit. There's been some times where I'm like right on that edge of just bursting into tears. I've turned to my best friend and just be like, hey, can we just do night, please?
Yeah.
We will get through at least 1-2 bottles of wine and just talk for hours, really, and we'll just get it out. And just one thing that over the last few months that really sent me is that I tried to reach for help for someone who was very, very close to me, whom I trusted, and for lack of a better term, I was just thrown under the bus, and I was ignored. And I am very proud of myself for standing up and not tolerating being treated like that. But at the same time, it really, really burned to have that. And I just want people to know too, there's still people, there's still always other people to reach out and to connect with, and just to vent to. So it hurts, and trust me, it is. If that happens to you, it is hard to bounce back from that. But
yeah. And if you feel like you don't have anyone, maybe BetterHelp Online will contact me and sponsor the podcast.
A winky.
And then we can give you a discount to BetterHelp Online. So if anyone from BetterHelp Online is listening,
and that's
reach
a perfect
out.
Way to segue into this week's ad. Special shout out to BetterHelp.
No discount code this week.
No.
Well, Jacob Allen Keithley, if there are any single men that happen to listen to this and they'd like to get a hold of you, can we give your Instagram handle?
Absolutely. I feel like everyone's going to get a kick out of it. So far, everyone has. Do you want to read it out? All one word, all lowercase?
I wanted to ask you because I don't know what this came from. Jake is wearing khakis?
Yeah, so actually,
You are.
I'm wearing khaki joggers.
That's
although
good
you
marketing.
can't see, right? So it came from just the whole Jake from State Farm thing.
I was kidding. I don't live in a box.
Well, I don't know. 'Cause
Maybe
I would
someone
throw
else
references
doesn't know.
out you and but anyways. Yeah, that's what it came with that. And when I got on Instagram, I think 5 years ago at this point, 4 or 5 years ago, obviously Jake from State Farm was taken.
Right.
Because it's a recurring joke in my life.
Yes.
So I had to get creative, and here I am.
So
yeah, feel free to look me up.
Yeah, Jake is wearing khakis. All one word on Instagram. Episode number 1. Complete. Jake, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, brother.
Appreciate it.
I love you, man.
Love you too.
See you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.